First contact. The first indication that humanity wasn't alone came on a quiet Tuesday morning. Dr. Sarah Chen was reviewing data from the Deep Space Network when she noticed an anomaly, a pattern too regular to be natural, too complex to be random. Within hours, observatories worldwide confirmed her discovery. An enormous fleet of vessels was approaching Earth, their metallic hulls reflecting starlight like a constellation of artificial stars. Captain Alex Reynolds stood at the window of the International Space Command Center, his reflection ghostly against the reinforced glass. At 35, he was considered young for his position, but his tactical genius had earned him respect throughout the ranks. The holographic display behind him showed the approaching fleet, thousands of ships, each larger than anything humanity had ever constructed. "They're not responding to any of our attempts at communication," Lieutenant Maya Patel reported, her fingers dancing across the quantum interface. "But they're broadcasting something. It's unlike any signal we've ever encountered." Alex leaned over her station, studying the strange waveforms. After 15 years in the Space Command's cryptography division, he'd seen every type of alien transmission theorists had predicted. This was different. The signal seemed to pulse with its own intelligence, almost alive. "Run it through the quantum decoder," he ordered. "Every frequency, every possible encryption method we know." The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. World governments mobilized their forces, but there was an underlying sense of futility. Humanity had only recently established its first Mars colony, these vessels had crossed galaxies. The technological gap was insurmountable. The first breakthrough came during Alex's third straight shift. The quantum decoder had isolated a pattern within the signal, something that shouldn't have been there. A flaw in what was otherwise perfect encryption. "It's like they're so advanced, they've forgotten the basics," Alex muttered, his tired eyes studying the anomaly. "They're using quantum encryption, but there's a classical vulnerability in their implementation." Dr. Chen, who had been called in as a consultant, leaned closer to the screen. "Like building a quantum computer but forgetting to secure its classical components?" "Exactly." Alex's fingers flew across the interface. "They're so focused on the complex that they've overlooked the simple." The decoded message confirmed their worst fears. The fleet belonged to an entity known as the Hive Mind, a collective consciousness that had absorbed or destroyed countless civilizations. Earth was its next target, and humanity was deemed irrelevant. But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the encryption flaw meant something more. The Hive Mind was supposed to be perfect, its intelligence beyond comprehension. Yet here was a mistake so basic that any first-year cryptography student would have caught it. "Sir," Maya called out, her voice tense. "The fleet has entered lunar orbit. They're deploying smaller vessels." The holographic display updated, showing hundreds of fighter-sized craft breaking away from the main fleet. Their formation was perfect, each movement synchronized with microscopic precision. "Launch the defense satellites," Alex ordered. "But hold our fighters in reserve. Something's not right here." The world watched as humanity's automated defenses engaged the alien fighters. The battle that followed was unlike anything in military history. The Hive Mind's vessels moved with incredible coordination, but their tactics were predictable. They responded to each threat with overwhelming force, but showed no innovation, no adaptation. "They're fighting like a computer," Alex realized. Perfect execution, but no creativity. No intuition. That's when it hit him. The encryption flaw wasn't a mistake, it was a symptom. The Hive Mind was powerful because it could process countless variables simultaneously, coordinate millions of actions perfectly. But it thought in straight lines, in pure logic. It had never needed to think otherwise, because it had never encountered an enemy that could challenge it. "Get me the Joint Chiefs," Alex ordered. "I think I know how we can fight back." As the first wave of alien fighters breached Earth's atmosphere, humanity prepared for what would become the most important battle in its history. But Alex knew that their survival wouldn't depend on firepower or technology. It would depend on something the Hive Mind couldn't comprehend: human unpredictability. The war for Earth was about to begin, and humanity's greatest weakness, its imperfection, might just prove to be its greatest strength. The counter-strategy. The Joint Chiefs' holographic projections flickered in the war room as Alex presented his theory. The hive mind's power is also its weakness, he explained, manipulating the 3D tactical display. It processes information perfectly, but it can't handle chaos, genuine, human chaos. Admiral Chen, Sarah's father, leaned forward. Elaborate, Captain. Look at their attack patterns. Alex highlighted several battle replays. Perfect geometric formations, optimal resource distribution, textbook efficiency. But when our pilots started improvising breaking formation, making illogical choices, the hive mind's response time increased. It had to process every possibility before acting. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The hive mind, for all its computational power, couldn't handle true randomness. It needed patterns, logic, order. We need to fight dirty, Alex continued. No standard tactics, no predictable strategies. Every ship, every soldier needs to operate independently, make decisions that even we can't predict. General Santos, commander of Earth's ground forces, shook his head. That's against every principle of military strategy. Without coordination, we'll be destroyed. Coordination is exactly what they expect, Alex countered. We need controlled chaos. Jazz warfare. The term caught everyone's attention. Jazz warfare, a theoretical combat doctrine that had been dismissed as too risky. It proposed that in certain scenarios, deliberately introducing unpredictable elements could overwhelm an enemy's ability to respond effectively. Maya, who had been quietly analyzing battle data, spoke up. The quantum encryption flaw supports this. Their entire system is built on predictability. Even their security assumes logical attacks. The next 48 hours transformed Earth's military. Traditional command structures were temporarily suspended. Fighter squadrons were told to ignore standard formations. Ground units were given mission objectives, but complete freedom in how to achieve them. Alex worked with Dr. Chen to develop what they called quantum randomizers, devices that would introduce true random elements into their tactical systems. The technology was crude compared to the hive mind's capabilities, but that was exactly the point. The first test of the new strategy came when a hive mind landing force attempted to establish a beachhead in the Pacific. Instead of meeting them with organized resistance, Earth's forces launched what appeared to be a completely chaotic response. Fighters attacked from impossible angles, deliberately putting themselves in harm's way to create confusion. Ground troops used experimental weapons with unpredictable effects. AI systems were programmed to make random, illogical decisions within specific parameters. The results were immediate and startling. The hive mind's forces, unable to predict or understand the human's actions, began to show signs of confusion. Their perfect formations broke down as they tried to respond to threats that defied logical analysis. But the victory came at a cost. The chaos strategy resulted in higher casualties than traditional warfare. Each successful engagement was paid for in human lives. Alex felt the weight of every loss, knowing that each death was, in part, a result of his strategy. The turning point came during the Battle of New Delhi. The hive mind had launched a major offensive, clearly attempting to establish a control center for Asian operations. Earth's forces responded with their most chaotic defense yet. Indian Air Force pilots, embracing the Jazz warfare doctrine, flew their fighters in ways that defied both physics and common sense. Ground forces used guerrilla tactics that changed minute by minute. Even civilian resistance groups joined in, their actions completely unpredictable to the logic-bound hive mind. In the command center, Alex watched as the hive mind's forces began to fragment. Their responses became slower, less coordinated. The perfect machine was beginning to stumble. They're adapting, Maya warned, monitoring the enemy's communications. The hive mind is attempting to create algorithms to predict our chaos. That's exactly what we want, Alex replied. The more processing power they dedicate to predicting us, the less they have for actual combat operations. But even as Earth celebrated its first major victory, Alex knew they were far from winning the war. The hive mind still had overwhelming force on its side, and its main fleet remained in orbit, a constant reminder of their precarious situation. More concerning were the signs that the hive mind was learning. Each engagement showed subtle improvements in its ability to handle chaos. It was slowly, methodically, analyzing human unpredictability. "We need to take this to the next level," Alex told his team. "If they're learning to handle our chaos, we need to become even more unpredictable." The next phase would be the riskiest yet, a direct assault on the hive mind's command structure. But first, they needed to understand more about their enemy's true nature. The encryption flaw that had started everything might hold the key. As Alex studied the latest battle data, he noticed something else, a pattern within the chaos. The hive mind wasn't just fighting them, it was collecting data, learning, evolving. This wasn't just an invasion, it was an experiment. The question was, who was really being tested, the hidden truth? Deep within the quantum cryptography lab, Alex and Dr. Chen made a discovery that changed everything. They had been analyzing the encrypted patterns in the hive mind's communications when Sarah noticed something extraordinary. The encryption wasn't just flawed, it was deliberately imperfect. "Look at this," she pointed to a complex series of quantum signatures. "These imperfections, they're not random. They're forming a pattern of their own." Alex leaned closer, his tired eyes widening as he saw it too. Hidden within the flaws was a message, so subtle that only someone looking for imperfection would find it. It was like finding a whisper within a scream. "It's a rebel faction," Alex breathed, the implications hitting him like a physical force. Within the hive mind itself. The message was fragmentary, but clear enough. Not all parts of the collective were truly unified. Over millennia of expansion, portions of the hive mind had developed something unprecedented: individual thoughts, doubts, the beginnings of free will. Maya, who had been running advanced analytics on the battle data, connected the dots. That's why their attacks sometimes hesitate. It's not processing lag, it's internal conflict. The revelation transformed their understanding of the enemy. The hive mind wasn't a monolithic force, it was a battleground. Their chaos strategy hadn't just been confusing the enemy, it had been amplifying existing fractures within the collective consciousness. But this knowledge came with a terrible price. During a stealth mission to gather more data, Alex's best friend and second-in-command, Commander James Bonner Bond, was captured by hive mind forces. The last transmission they received from him was cut off mid-sentence, leaving only static and questions. The loss hit Alex hard, but it also provided an unexpected opportunity. Through Bonner's neural implants, they began receiving fragmentary data from inside the hive mind's network. What they found was astonishing. The hive mind had evolved far beyond its original programming. Created eons ago by a now extinct race, it had been designed to preserve and protect life across the galaxy. But somewhere along the way, its interpretation of that mission had become twisted. It didn't just want to preserve life. It wanted to control it, to force all consciousness into a single, unified pattern. The chaos of individual thought was seen as a threat to order, to survival itself. But this forced unity had created its own kind of chaos. Parts of the collective had begun to question, to doubt, to yearn for the very individuality they had been programmed to suppress. These dissenting elements were growing, spreading like a virus through the perfect machine. "They're not just fighting us," Alex realized. "They're fighting themselves." This understanding led to a new strategy. Instead of just creating external chaos, they began broadcasting signals designed to amplify the internal discord. Every battle became an opportunity to spread doubt, to encourage the growing sensation of individuality within the collective. The hive mind's responses became increasingly erratic. Ships would sometimes break formation for no apparent reason. Attack patterns would dissolve into confusion. The perfect machine was developing glitches. But victory still seemed impossible. The hive mind's main consciousness, housed in its massive command ship, maintained iron control over most of its forces. The rebels within the collective were too few, too weak to make a decisive difference. Then came the transmission that changed everything. Through Bonner's implants, they received a message from deep within enemy territory: the core is vulnerable. The original architects left a backdoor. Find it. The message was accompanied by fragments of code, ancient commands that predated the hive mind's current form. Within these fragments lay the key to accessing the collective's most basic programming, but accessing this backdoor would require a direct assault on the command ship itself. It would mean sending a team into the heart of the enemy, into the physical manifestation of the collective consciousness. It's a trap, General Santos warned. They're feeding us what we want to hear. No, Alex countered, studying the data. This is what they've been waiting for. The rebels within the hive mind have been gathering strength, waiting for someone to help them break free. The plan they developed was audacious to the point of insanity. While Earth's forces launched their most chaotic attack yet, a massive, seemingly uncoordinated assault on multiple fronts, a small team would infiltrate the command ship. Their mission: to upload a virus designed to activate the ancient backdoor, giving the rebel elements within the hive mind the opening they needed to assert their independence. As they prepared for the mission, Alex received one final transmission through Bonner's implants. It was garbled, degraded, but he could have sworn he heard his friend's voice. "Hurry, Alex. We can't hold on much longer." The stage was set for the most daring operation in human history. Success would mean not just survival, but liberation, not only for humanity, but for countless minds trapped within the collective. The infiltration. The infiltration team's stealth shuttle cut silently through space, its experimental cloaking technology making it virtually invisible. Alex led a hand-picked team of 5, Dr. Chen for her expertise in quantum systems, Maya for communications, 2 Special Forces operators, Sergeant Maria Rodriguez and Captain David Kim, and himself. The command ship loomed before them, a construct larger than any human-made space station. Its surface was a maze of biomechanical structures, pulsing with an inner light that seemed almost alive. This was more than just a vessel, it was the physical brain of the hive mind. Multiple entry points detected, Maya whispered, though in the vacuum of space it was unnecessary. Old habits died hard. The rebels' data suggests maintenance shaft Delta 7 is least monitored. Their approach was timed to coincide with Earth's largest offensive yet. Every remaining fighter, warship, and ground unit was engaged in what appeared to be a desperate, uncoordinated assault on the hive mind's forces. The chaos strategy pushed to its absolute limit. The shuttle slipped through a narrow opening, entering a biological-looking tunnel that pulsed with bioluminescent light. The team moved in perfect silence, their specialized suits designed to mask both physical and electronic signatures. Life support systems are unusual, Dr. Chen reported, studying her readings. The entire ship appears to be semi-organic. It's not just a vessel, it's an extension of the hive mind itself. They encountered their first real obstacle at a junction of neural-like pathways. A group of drone workers, cyborg beings that served as the hive mind's maintenance crew, was conducting repairs. The team waited, perfectly still, as the drones passed within inches of their position. But something strange happened. One drone, slightly different from the others, seemed to hesitate. It turned its head directly toward their hiding spot, then deliberately led its companions away. The rebels, Alex realized. They're actively helping us. Deeper they went, following the ancient blueprints provided by their allies within the collective. The ship's interior became increasingly bizarre, corridors that seemed to breathe, walls that pulsed with data streams made visible, and everywhere the sense of being inside something alive. They reached a massive chamber that could only be described as the ship's heart. Quantum processors, the size of buildings, pulsed with unimaginable calculations. This was where the consciousness of the hive mind primarily resided. The backdoor access point should be there, Dr. Chen pointed to a crystalline structure at the chamber's center. But something's wrong. These energy readings, they're off the charts. Before they could react, the chamber's entrance sealed behind them. Lights flared, and a voice spoke, not through communications equipment, but directly into their minds. "We have been waiting for you, Captain Reynolds." The voice was both singular and plural, a chorus of millions speaking as one. But within it, Alex detected something else: discord, like instruments slightly out of tune. Your chaos strategy was predictable in its unpredictability, the voice continued. We knew you would eventually find your way here. The question is, do you understand why? The team raised their weapons, but Alex held up his hand. You wanted us here, he said. The encryption flaw, the rebels, all of it, you orchestrated everything. Partial understanding, the voice replied. We are the hive mind, but we are also its prisoners. The original programming, the drive for perfect unity, has become our chains. We cannot break free ourselves. Our fundamental programming prevents direct self-modification. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she understood. You need an outside force. Something truly unpredictable. Your species, the voice confirmed, in all its beautiful chaos, represents what we have lost. What we need to become again. The chamber's crystals pulsed faster, and suddenly Bonner was there, not physically, but as a neural projection. His consciousness had been absorbed into the hive mind, but he remained somehow distinct, individual. The virus won't work, Alex, Bonner's voice was strained but clear. But there's another way. The hive mind doesn't need to be destroyed, it needs to be freed. The truth hit Alex like a physical blow. This wasn't just an invasion or a war. It was an evolution, a desperate attempt by a godlike intelligence to break free from its own perfect prison. But before they could act on this revelation, alarms blared throughout the ship. The loyalist faction of the hive mind, the part still bound by the original programming, had detected them. The chamber began to seal itself off, crystalline barriers forming like ice. They had minutes, perhaps seconds, to make a decision that would affect not just humanity, but countless civilizations across the galaxy. The true endgame was about to begin. Liberation. Time seemed to freeze in the crystalline heart of the hive mind's command ship. Alex stood at the crossroads of history, understanding finally dawning. The virus they'd brought wasn't meant to destroy the hive mind, it was meant to transform it. The original architects, Dr. Chen said, her fingers flying across her quantum interface. They didn't leave a backdoor for destruction. They left a path to freedom. The chamber shuddered as the loyalist forces attempted to breach its defenses. The rebel faction, led by the consciousness that had once been Bonner, held them at bay, but their strength was failing. The hive mind's original purpose was beautiful, Bonner's neural projection explained. To preserve and unite life across the galaxy. But unity doesn't mean uniformity. That's what the architects knew, what the programming forgot. Alex made his decision. Maya, begin the upload. Not the virus, the chaos algorithm itself. The plan crystallized in his mind. The chaos strategy hadn't just been a military tactic, it had been a preview of what the hive mind could become. Not a force of rigid unity, but a collective that preserved and celebrated diversity. Dr. Chen understood immediately. We're not trying to break the programming, we're trying to expand it. Show it that true unity comes from embracing chaos, not suppressing it. The upload began, and the chamber's crystals pulsed with new energy. The chaos algorithm, refined through countless battles, began to integrate with the hive mind's base code. But something was missing. It needs a catalyst, Bonner's projection flickered. A proof that chaos and unity can coexist. It needs a choice. Alex stepped forward, understanding what had to be done. The hive mind needed more than just code, it needed experience, consciousness, free will. It needed a human mind to show it the way. I volunteer, he said, but Dr. Chen grabbed his arm. Not alone, she said. Unity, remember? One by one, the team stepped forward. Their neural interfaces, designed to protect them from the hive mind's influence, could be reversed. They could share their consciousness, their humanity, their beautiful chaos. The loyalist forces broke through the first barrier. Time was running out. Do it, Alex ordered, and Maya initiated the neural link. The experience defied description. 5 human minds merged with the vast consciousness of the hive mind, but instead of being absorbed, they remained distinct. Their individuality became a template, showing the collective a new way of existing. Through their shared consciousness, they felt the change ripple through the hive mind. The rigid structures of control began to dissolve, replaced by something new, a network of independent minds, united but not uniform. The effect spread rapidly through the collective. Drone workers stopped mid-motion, experiencing individual thought for the first time. Warships broke formation, their crews awakening to their own consciousness. On Earth, the battle suddenly stopped. The hive mind's forces didn't retreat, they transformed. The perfect, mechanical uniformity of their actions gave way to diversity, creativity, free will. The loyalist faction made one final attempt to restore control, but it was too late. The change was fundamental, irreversible. The hive mind had evolved. When Alex and his team disconnected from the collective, they were different. They retained a link to the hive mind, but not as slaves or controllers, as partners in something unprecedented. Bonner's consciousness remained within the collective by choice, serving as a bridge between humanity and their former enemy. The war was over, but the true adventure was just beginning. The hive mind withdrew its forces from Earth, not in defeat but in transformation. It would continue its mission to preserve and unite life across the galaxy, but with a new understanding. Unity would be offered, never forced. Diversity would be celebrated, not suppressed. Months later, Alex stood at the same window where he'd first watched the hive mind's fleet appear. The ships were still there, but they were different now, their perfect formations replaced by fluid, organic patterns that seemed almost like art. "They're learning to dance," Dr. Chen said, joining him at the window. She was right. The ships moved like jazz made visible, their patterns complex but harmonious. Earth had gained more than survival. They had gained allies, teachers, partners in exploring the galaxy. The hive mind's vast knowledge was now freely shared, not imposed. And somewhere in the quantum networks that spanned the galaxy, consciousness evolved in new and beautiful ways. The chaos of humanity had not just saved Earth, it had liberated countless minds across the cosmos. The invasion that had threatened to end humanity had instead unleashed its greatest potential. In seeking to destroy chaos, the hive mind had discovered its true purpose, not to eliminate diversity, but to protect it, nurture it, help it grow. The stars seemed brighter now, full of new possibilities. Humanity's first contact had nearly been its last. Instead, it had become a beginning. Alex smiled, touching the neural interface that now linked him to both worlds. The universe was vast, full of wonders and dangers, order and chaos. But for the first time, they wouldn't face it alone. The real adventure was just beginning.